Well, the president's got it just all wrong. First, we created tariffs. Farmers are taking it on the chin with higher costs, just like everybody listening to this, viewing this. Then he starts a trade war with China, and soybean farmers are taking it on the chin. China was the largest purchaser of U.S. soybeans, and literally overnight, they stopped buying soybeans, leaving bins full and farmers going bankrupt. And now, because he likes the president of Argentina, or at least that was the basis that he gave, he's going to not only he gave them $40 billion. As a matter of fact, the first $20 billion went out, and the first thing Argentina did was lower a tax and sell soybeans to China. And now he turns around and says, I'm going to buy their beef. So it's really, many of the ranchers, we have folks on our staff and in our network, farmers that raise cattle, and, it's a betrayal. They had expected the prices have been going up. They're finally making some money after about a decade of losses. Our cattle herd is the smallest it's been since the 50s. And they're finally now have a chance to recover and put more heifers in to be breeding stock for cows. And the president says, oh, beef's too high at the grocery store, so I'm going to import more beef. He's just got it wrong. It won't work. There's no guarantee. The big packers, 4 companies, control 80% of all the beef in this country. So you go to the grocery store, it's an illusion that there's that much choice in that case. 4 companies control the beef in this country, and there's nothing the president's doing that they will be the buyers. They'll get cheaper meat, and nothing guarantees the consumer will see a lower price. So, matter of fact, they've been making record profits during this time of high beef prices. They could stand to lower some of that, continue to pay the farmer what they need, the rancher, and provide the consumer with a fair market price in the grocery store. He's just got it wrong.
Trump thinks farmers are fucking stupid. And before you lose your shit, let me explain. In retaliation to a trade war that they fucking started, China and other countries are no longer buying crops from American farmers. So what does Trump do? He comes out and says that he's going to use tariff revenue to bail them out. But who pays for that tariff? Oh, that's right, the American taxpayer, because the companies they buy their products from have now passed that cost of that tariff on to them. The problem isn't that we're bailing out farmers. I believe we need to bail them out. We need to support small farmers so they don't have to sell their land to big-ass corporations who will then in turn just own more of our land and more of our food chain supply. The problem is that the American consumer, who are also farmers by the way, cover the cost of that tariff at the checkout aisle and at the parts store. And now the federal government is going to use that money to pay the farmer for the money they lost as a result of a trade war that they fucking started. They are using American consumers and American farmers to solve a problem that they fucking created. And then they're going to stamp their name on it and say, see, we're for the farmer. No, the fuck you ain't. You're just too stupid, or even worse, you think they're too stupid to know that you're the one who created this fucking problem in the first place. Meanwhile, their rich fucking buddies just got even richer because they didn't have to touch that fucking tariff, and we just got fucking poorer.
I'm making this video from Iowa. We own a soybean farm here, and we are really struggling right now. The entire soybean industry is collapsing thanks to these tariffs and the fact that China has completely cut off all contracts with the United States. They are importing all of their soybeans from Brazil. Thanks to these trade wars, soybean prices have dropped so much that it's pushing all of us farmers into the red in an already difficult year. We're part of the Soybean Farmers Association, and we sent a letter to the president this month urging him to stop this trade war so that the entire industry doesn't go under. On top of that, the tariffs have made all of our farm equipment skyrocket in price. We can barely afford anything right now. Of course, as a farmer, I voted red just like all the other soybean farmers, and now the people we elected are ruining our entire business, our entire way of life, our entire industry. The same thing happened in 2019 when he had the trade war with China. I mean, I know it doesn't make sense that we voted for him again, but we just can't help it. Anyway, any help that we could get urging him to end this trade war would be much appreciated.
Hello and what's up, good people? What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're doing great from wherever you're watching this video from. Now, this isn't a mistake. Donald Trump is actually tanking the American economy on purpose. He's doing this deliberately. The man who calls himself an economic genius, has turned out to be the architect of America's, economic collapse. And while many hardworking Americans and hardworking American farmers and small businesses continue to suffer, he actually sends billions of American dollars, overseas to save his political buddies. That is not America first. This is Trump's cronies first. We can't put it in any other better way. And that is exactly what Americans are talking about. And that is exactly what they are saying. So let's continue to watch a little more, and I'll be back with good commentary.
America's largest and most valuable export to China, do you know what it is? Soybeans. Well, they have crashed to zero because of President Trump's trade war. Farmers are feeling the pain big time.
It's harvest season in America's heartland.
Is this the prime harvest time in southern Illinois?
Yes, it is right now.
But for soybean farmers like Scott Gaffner, it's a season of worry. Soybeans are the nation's largest agricultural export. But as the trade war drags on, China, America's biggest buyer, hasn't purchased any this year.
We can't help but feel very anxious of wondering why it's taking so long to get this resolved.
Are you angry?
The farther we go into this season, the more we're going to lose. And China should have been buying our beans already, and they're not. It's like crickets.
So he's storing what he's producing, hoping the market will turn.
So we're going to lose probably about $2 a bushel this year.
And how much does that mean overall?
That means a lot. It means we can't sustain that kind of loss for very long of a time period without going under.
And it's not the first time this has happened. Soybean farmers were hammered during President Trump's first trade war with China in 2018. Now the administration is promising them another bailout.
We don't want the aid, we want the trade.
Gaffner says one-time relief is not a long-term solution.
If China starts buying elsewhere, which they are doing now, once they establish those trade routes, it becomes more difficult for them to come back to the U.S. to buy their commodities. Once we lose that, we may never get it back again. And that's huge for next generations.
When President Obama was in office, we had a wonderful jolt of energy because we had an administration that said, we're going to have advanced biofuels power our country. And then Trump got in there and decided to have his trade wars again and everything else, and to roll back all those environmental protections, and the ag economy started to tank. Joe Biden gets in there again. Hey, we're going to have advanced biofuels. We're going to have airline fuel that comes from corn-based ethanol. What happened? Prices went up again, up to an all-time high, right where they were. If Trump gets back in there again, we're going to have a trade war, and boom, prices are tanking again.
And honestly, he's the first farmer that I have actually heard name Trump when it comes to the issues that farmers are having, because a lot of it is actually his fault because of his trade wars and tariffs that are going on. And in the rest of this video, he says that farmers don't need a bailout. They need a trade deal of some sort so they can sell their crops. And this is what he has to say in regards to what the bailout money should actually be used for.
That's money that should be going towards senior citizens. That's money that should be going for the Affordable Care Act. That's money that should just be going to regular tax cuts for normal Americans and not billionaires. What he is doing is destroying our markets.
Wow, someone that's actually speaking really great common sense and is for the people. Because if you notice the other farmers that voted for Donnie, they don't put any type of blame towards him, even though the same exact situation happened in his first term. But in conclusion, I genuinely have respect for this guy that's on that video.
It was awful discouraging. You know, we do our very best to grow a good crop to feed the world, and then we can't hardly give it away.
Bachmann blames President Trump for the soybean crisis, even though he voted for him. He says new tariffs are forcing China to buy soybeans from Argentina and Brazil. Now many Iowa farmers face selling this year's crop at a huge loss.
The way things are, there won't be a farmer left in 5 years if things don't change, because our expenses are so high and the crop is worth less than it was 30 years ago.
Bachmann survived the farm crisis during the 1980s. It led to thousands of farm foreclosures. If the federal government offers crop payments to help farmers, Bachmann says he'll say no thanks.
We would a lot rather have free markets than a handout.
Bachmann recently asked Iowa Senator Charles Grassley for help with those free markets.
I told him that the 1980s farm crisis is going to look like a picnic compared to today if things don't change and change fast.
The Trump administration admits farmers are not doing well under President Trump's tariffs, most especially soybean farmers. The, quote, collateral damage, as Politico puts it, in the president's trade war with China. Since May, China has not purchased a single U.S. soybean, not a one.
Trump's illegal tariffs have single-handedly destroyed the U.S. soybean market. Historically, 60% of Iowa soybeans have gone to China. With Trump's trade wars from his first administration, the U.S. has become an unreliable supplier. So instead of these soybeans going to China, it's soybeans from South America, like places like Brazil and Argentina.
Tell me about what's happening with your farm.
Well, we've got a real disaster with this tariff deal. Last year, we sent around $12 billion, I think $14 billion worth of soybeans the year before. For the first time in 20 years, China's bought 0 soybeans and 0 new crop corn out of this country.
0?
So we went from 12 billion to 0.
What's it doing politically? Are they still set on Trump and his leadership?
I've got buddies that say you have to trust him. I have buddies that just cannot do the left side of things, and that's where they're at. But now I went to the farm show in Decatur, and I met a lot of guys that farm up north that sings a lot different song than they sung 7 months ago or 8 months ago.
And right now, Donald Trump, the self-proclaimed champion of the forgotten farmer, just pulled off a move that has soybean growers and corn producers absolutely furious.
We voted because he was going to help the farmers, and now it's just hurting us like crazy.
Agriculture is our foundation here in Nebraska and many states in the Midwest. If agriculture is failing here, everything is going to fail.
People here wondering if President Trump has forgotten past promises to look after them, even during trade wars.
You know, as a farmer, we get up one morning and you give Argentina, which is our second biggest competition in the world. They're the largest exporters of soybean meal in the world. So I get up one morning, I turn the news on, and you give $20 billion of taxpayer money to my competition.
What do? You're a soybean farmer. Last time I talked to you, you said you believe you're going to break even. Are you still on track to break even?
I don't know. I've lost 10% of market share since we talked last. I've lost another $12 an acre for the difference in the market when we talked last to where I'm at today.
That was like a month ago.
Every day. Yeah. Lost another $12 an acre since then on 500 acres.
Argentina is already moving soybeans to China, the very market American farmers lost access to because of Trump's bluster. And this bailout makes them stronger. That's why farmers see this as such a brutal slap in the face. The man who promised to fight for them is literally funding their competition.
Everybody's scared to death. I got friends that are bankers that, will tell you the bank examiners is already telling them, look, you're going to have to deal with these guys because their equipment's not going to be worth as much. Their land's not going to be worth as much.
Markets have gone away. Input costs have gone up. And there's farmers in Montana, just like there are in Arkansas, that are wondering how they're going to stay in business. And bankers are looking at them going, can I afford to continue to loan these folks money? This is crazy. And to get bailed out by the CCC again is the last thing the farmers want. They want these markets to work. And these tariffs have destroyed the markets for farmers across the board. Family farmers.
One quick question to you about the president. He put out a message on Truth Social last hour saying that he's going to be meeting with President Xi of China and that he will discuss soybeans. Do you put much stock in that? Does that make you feel better?
Well, I mean, what good's it going to do to discuss soybeans at almost November? Because Senator Tester can correct me if I'm wrong here, but in November, the Brazilians will start cutting. They'll be in full swing by December. They don't need us.
Now, let's start with some basic facts. And that the Chinese market used to be America's biggest buyer of soybeans. Everybody knows that. Billions of dollars every year from, that export. Farmers in the Midwest, really relied on this trade to keep their businesses alive. But then what happened? Trump decided to pick a fight with China using some reckless tariffs that had no clear strategy, they had no backup plan, and actually have no exit plan, because he's just been cornered when people started to retaliate, when other countries began to retaliate. Now he does not have a way out of, the trap he's driven America into. So what is the result? China hit back, just like many other countries. But in the case of soybeans, China really just hit back. They stopped buying US soybeans and they turned to South America. They turned to Brazil. Meanwhile, American farmers were left with mountains of unsold crops, crops they couldn't sell. But it's not just that. How about the debts that they also accrued? When the farmer is going into the planting season, they usually take loans and borrow monies from different places because they know at the end of the day, they will sell their produce and they will make enough money to pay back their debts and enough for themselves as well. So now they have debts and loans they couldn't pay, and a government that just tells them to trust the process, honestly, And while these farmers are begging for, federal aid, they're begging for help, Trump just does the unbelievable. He moves to send billions of dollars, not to them, not to Americans, but to bail out his friend, Javier Milei of Argentina. Isn't that unbelievable? It was during, in fact, the same period of time that we saw those Arkansas farmers, begging for Trump's help, that, a week later, he wires, I think it was at first $20 billion to Argentina. That's truly unbelievable. So let that sink in. American farmers are losing their homes, they're losing their land to corporates, and Trump is wiring billions to another country just to save his political friend's career, because that's exactly what he's doing. He's trying to bail out his friend Javier Milei because he is politically done, And what kind of America first policy is that? If you really are also to just make sense of what Trump is doing with his tariffs story, So it's not America first. It's crony capitalism, pure and simple, So, but I'm thinking, what is the most painful, the most ironical, and the most sarcastic part about this whole story? Many MAGA supporters still defend Donald Trump. Of course, many are now coming out to say enough is enough and, we have learned the lesson the hard way. But there's still people defending him. They still think this man is fighting for them. You see, that's the ironical bit. They don't see that they have actually just been used as pawns in his political game, clearly, to make his political friends happier, but not them. You can actually call yourself an economic genius while your own farmers are drowning in debt. Your trade allies are walking away. You're chasing them, not just walking away, or on their own will, but you're slapping unreasonable tariffs and, they go. And your own economy is actually bleeding from self-inflicted wounds, because these are self-inflicted wounds. That's not genius. That's economic sabotage, And no real leader, I say no real leader destroys their nation's economic backbone, farming, of all other sectors, and calls it patriotism. He pretends to love America and talk about America first, make America great again, but you're destroying your country's economic backbone. How is that America? How are you patriotic? That's not patriotism. No president who truly loves his country, who sends billions overseas while his own people are suffering, and all they need is the billions you're sending to your friends. So let's be honest. This isn't about America. It's about Trump's ego, his alliances, and his desperate need for power. This is what they do. He's helping his friend so that when it comes to his time, maybe then his friends can also stand with him. So it's just it's a game. It's a game of friends helping each other to cling onto power, because that is what he did with Javier Milei. Javier Milei is politically a failure. And so he's trying to bail him out. So when it comes to his time, then Milei can also try and see what he can do or what he has done for him, in fact, you know, in the past. So at the end of the day, you know, you as an American cannot eat the slogan, America first, make America great. You can't feed your family with make America great again, can you? You cannot. And the people who still refuse to see through this illusion, there's a problem. The MAGA cronies also, who still cannot see through these illusions, are actually the ones that are crying the loudest. They're the ones that are paying the highest price for the lies of Donald Trump and his regime. So maybe next time he calls himself an economic genius. Trump calls himself an economic genius. I'm better than anyone else. I'm better than anyone else. Anything he would always say, I know better than anyone else, you know? Remember the farmers who really lost their livelihoods. The markets America might never actually regain, you know? It's not easy to just gain back the markets they are losing, because China is now looking to get soybean from Brazil, even from Argentina, that Trump is supporting. And maybe, just maybe, they might not look towards US anymore if they are finding better, stable, better prices and a stable, you know, source of soybeans. Then they will depend on that. They will look up to that direction. So there are markets that a US might never regain, and the billions that went into, you know, it's only also good you remember the billions that went into his friends instead of his people, you know, and that's not genius. I'd personally say that's nothing but betrayal. Yeah. So I don't know what you think about this. Share with me what you think in the comment section below. Leave me a comment. And if you like this video, if you like the kind of content we do, then please give this video a thumbs up. You can share it as well. And if you're new to the channel, or you happen to be here and you haven't yet subscribed, then kindly support this channel by hitting the subscribe button and becoming part of us. So until next time, I'll see you in the next video.